mission is simple: to inspire individuals to first become better people so they can become better mates, create better relationships, and ultimately help to build better communities. Well, I really love your vision, Troy. And as you know, I'm a fan of your work. I think you're an excellent writer, and I think you share some things that are deeply needed in our world in terms of helping people have better relationships. So I'm thrilled to have you back, and I'm excited about our conversation today.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. I'm excited as well.
So to get started, I would love it if you could share just the short version, if you will, of your own journey. Maybe it's a short version of what you share in your man's journey toward and through marriage, because I know that a lot of the women here wonder what that journey is like for a masculine man and how they actually get through that journey. It seems like there's this perception out there that a lot of men will never get to that place. And I just think it'd be fun to hear a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to share it because, it's funny. People always ask me. So I met my wife actually when we were in college, right? And so I was 19. I think she was 21, I want to say.
Yeah.
And we didn't get married until I was about 27, 28. And people ask me all the time, like, what took you so long to marry her? Right? And I'm like, one thing you got to understand about a man is, and women, is that we're always evolving, right? And the person I was at 19 just wasn't the same person I was at 28. Right. And I wanted to make sure we were still compatible from that big transition. I mean, your 20s are a huge transition. And it just turns out that we were still really compatible. But also, I knew to get to the next level in my life, I had to kind of bunker down and build something bigger than myself, right? And she was the perfect mate for that because she supported me. She was a very good compliment to me in the way I live and my lifestyle and my dreams and my aspirations. So she was very supportive. And she also had her own life as well, right? So she was a professional woman, and that really attracted me as well. And so for me, it was just a matter of me being disciplined enough to step back and say, you know what? This is bigger than me. I have to stop being selfish, right? And thinking about my own self all the time. And then I had to kind of step into that role. But with that stepping into that is this fear, right? That a lot of men won't talk about, right? And it's this fear of, will I be good enough? Will I be a good enough husband? Will I be a good enough provider? Will I be a good enough father if we have kids? And those insecurities come. And you have to have a woman with you that kind of still believes in you, even when you have those insecurities. And that's kind of what I talk about in my journey, is how it wasn't just, I just stepped out and I was just this bold, confident man knowing that I could do everything all the time. It really took a lot of support from my wife to make me step into my manhood. And that was great. And so that's kind of what inspired me to write the book, because I got so many men who go through that same kind of journey in that vulnerable phase, but they never talk about it. And once you get men and start talking about stuff like that, we realize that we're not alone. So that's why I did it. And that's kind of what my journey looked like.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And of course, 19 is very, very young. Mm-hmm. And you're right. You were still figuring out who you were and wanted to have that opportunity to kind of grow into your manhood. A lot of the women that are listening are older. Mm-hmm. And so the men they would be dating or getting to know would be older as well. And yet it occurs to me that something you said there is really important and really relevant. And that is, you were considering a lot of things. Will I be a good husband? If we have kids, will I be a good father? In other words, you were taking this idea of committing to partnership and marriage and family really seriously. And I think that is something that is common for men of various ages, no matter where they're at in their life. I think a lot of men really take this idea of partnership, marriage, commitment really seriously, and that may be why a lot of men seem to take a little bit more time. Would you say that's true?
I absolutely would say that that's true. And, you got to think, men are bred to be the cornerstones of a marriage, right? And that's what we're taught, right? You have to be a provider, you have to be a protector. And if I'm feeling insecure in those areas, then my ability to step into being a husband is not that promising, right? But if I get to the point in my life where I feel good about where I am, who I am, and what I can offer up, then I might be more willing to do it, and I can get out of my selfish ways. For a lot of women, when they think about marriage, they think about security, right? And I get that. And so a lot of times the woman will just say, let's just get married. Let's just be together. Because with him comes that security of feeling like you have someone. Well, he doesn't want to just be with you. He wants to be able to provide for you and to do the things for you that, that people are going to judge him for. And so if he can't offer that to you, then he might not jump into it as fast. And so that leaves a lot of people frustrated, right? Because, let's just be honest. Women do tend to mature a little bit faster than men. Mm-hmm. It takes us a little while longer to stop being as selfish. And because of that, we might take a little bit longer, but I always like women to know, especially older women, that, men still desire companionship, right? They still want to be with someone. They still want someone to have their back. They still want someone to be their companion. It's just our journey to it is a little bit different sometimes. And so I don't want any woman to give up any hope, even if you're a little bit older. Don't give up hope on that, because men do want the same things you want. It just takes us a little bit longer to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think this is really profound what you're talking about here, Troy, because my husband and I, we married later in life. My husband was 38 and I was 43. Mm-hmm. It was a first marriage for both of us, so definitely later in life. And as my husband and my husband's a very bright man. Mm-hmm. He's a CPA, he has his master's in accounting, and he has a law degree. But he went back to law school in his 30s. Mm-hmm. He was a student in his 30s. Uh-huh. And so, as I've talked to him over the years and said, what were some of the reasons that you stayed single for so long? And he said, I couldn't until I had a real job and was graduated from law school. I didn't feel like I could look a woman in the face and in good faith ask her to marry me. Mm-hmm. Now, it might seem like there would have been a lot of women out there that would have understood that he was going through school, that he was becoming an attorney, he was making even more of himself and would have even more earning potential. And yet inside of him, he didn't feel like he could, in good faith, present himself as someone who was ready to step into that role until he had made it through not only law school, but now was employed in a job where he felt like he could really provide, no matter how successful or how financially secure the woman might have been.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the worst things for men is to be in a situation where he's with a woman who supports him through his kind of upcoming, but then when things go a little bit bad, it gets kind of thrown in his face. You see what I mean? And that's what a lot of men fear. It's like, I know you say you'll support me through all this, but the last thing I need is for you to come back and say, well, you're not bringing anything to the table, right? Or you're not providing for us. And then now I'm stuck. So a lot of men would rather have just figured it out first and then bring on a wife.
Yeah. So this is part of many men's journey. And even men that are older or going through a transition, maybe they become unemployed and now they have to figure out what they're going to do next. They're in their 40s or even 50s or whatever, that could hold a man back from being ready for a relationship until they sort some of that stuff out, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have it right on time.
Right on time. So I know that, as much as we might learn and study about each other, read articles and have real life experience and real life relationships, there's still a lot of mystery around the differences between men and the differences between women. And I know we're speaking in general terms here and everyone's an individual. But generally speaking, can you share with us, besides this thing that we've been talking about where a man kind of comes into his manhood or comes into a place of feeling secure enough about what he has to offer, what are some of the other things that you think are really important to men that women should know about what's going on in the male psyche and what attracts them maybe to one woman over another? You may have mentioned or touched on some of these already, but I'd like to go a little deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many, and the last thing I want anybody in your audience to think is that I'm trying to put everybody in a box, right? That's not the goal, but there are just some general things that I do believe men tend to present a little bit differently than women, right? I mean, a good example of it is, I mean, it's how logical we think versus sometimes how emotional women might think, right? So a lot of times I'll give you an example. It might be if a woman asks you, how was your day? Right? I might say, it was good.
Right.
And I mean, it was good, right?
Right.
And if I ask her, how was her day? She might give me every single thing that happened in that day, right? And every emotion that went along with what happened in that day, right? And so as a man, I got to know she needs me to listen to those things. But then as a woman, she'll ask me the same question. If I say good, she might think something's wrong with me, right? We're just a little more direct when it comes to things like that, right? The other part is in how we kind of communicate. You know, men tend to communicate through actions, right? We tend to do things. You know, women tend to communicate a little more through words, all right? So a lot of times if, you know, one of the ways I might show I love you is by providing. It's by doing the things around the house that you asked me to do or whatever. But I might not be the type to come to you every day and tell you, you know, how much I love you and appreciate you and all those things. So it's just how we show love is different, you know, a lot of times. So I think those are big things. I think the other way that we tend to show love a little bit differently is physically, right? So a lot of women will say, I have clients all the time that come to me and say, oh, he always wants to, you know, have sex with me and touch me and da da da. And I'm like, a lot of that is him trying to connect with you, right? Our form of intimacy a lot of times is that physical showcase of intimacy. But sometimes that's, you know, for a lot of women, it's looked at as, you know, you're a horn dog, right? When really that's not it. That's how I'm expressing how I care about you a lot of the times. And so it's opposite for women a lot of times. You have to kind of warm up with the emotional part or the romance part in order for her to want to be physical. And so a lot of times, you know, those are small little disconnects that happen that can tear our actual relationship apart if we don't understand them, right? You ever heard of the saying, you know, men are like waffles and women are like spaghetti? You ever heard of that saying before?
I haven't heard that. No.
And it's kind of like, you know, men compartmentalize really well, right? So like a waffle, you think about it like the little squares, you know, we can be thinking about this here and then this here. They don't all intertwine, right? So I can be mad at work and then not be mad at home, right? So it's these little small compartments that we put things in. Or I can totally tune you out while I'm watching a game and not be thinking or hearing anything else. And you wonder, like, why can't I do 15 other things while I'm doing that, right? Because you can do that, right? You can multitask and do, I'll give you an example, like my wife, for instance. She'll have the baby in one arm, be cooking in another arm, doing the laundry, you know, over there. And I'm like, how do you do all that? But I'll be sitting there doing work and she'll be calling me and I just don't function. It's one way. It's like I'm in that waffle. And when I'm in that waffle, I can't think outside of that waffle. And so you tend to see that with men and women too. But if you think about it though, Michelle, the things I'm telling you, they tend to draw a wedge in between men and women all the time because we don't seek to understand, because we think that people should think like us, right? And if they don't think like us, then they must be wrong. And so, you know, hopefully that answers your question a little bit. And hopefully it helps somebody out there say, you know what, before I get upset, let me seek to understand first.
Yeah. And I think that idea, that concept, I think Stephen R. Covey, one of his 7 principles is seek first to understand and then to be understood.
Yes.
That one thing could probably really transform a lot of our interactions between men and women and as human beings in general. And I think that, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this, but I think that women often don't understand the magic power, so to speak, that they might have to bring out the best in men, and or on the reverse side of that, to kind of bring out the worst sides of men, right?
Yes.
Do you agree with me on that?
I absolutely 100% agree. I mean, if you think about the downfall or the rise of most men, they're at the hands of a woman, right?
Yeah.
Because women can affect men in a way that no other man can, right? She knows what buttons to push to bring them up, and she knows what buttons to push to bring them down, right? And here's the thing. When a man reaches a point of vulnerability, which it takes us longer to get to that vulnerable place, right? To where we want to open up and tell you and share our fears and our insecurities and all those things. When we get to that place, we're just naked, right? And once we're naked, I mean, we can be manipulated pretty easily. And so I've seen women, a lot of men I talk to, they say their lives changed for the better when they got married, right? They said they knew they would not be able to accomplish the things they've accomplished until they got married, right? Because a lot of times women give you that support and that backbone and honestly that peace that you need in order to focus on your dreams and your aspirations, right? But on the flip side, if the relationship is unhealthy, men are very distracted, right? Because he's always trying to please her, or is arguing, it's constant fighting, or whatever it is. So a lot of men's demise comes from women as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we can really, as we learn more about men and we learn how to interact with each other, men and women, and we gain that deeper understanding that we were talking about, then I feel like as a woman, we can really invite and inspire kind of those best qualities or those higher qualities that an individual man has to offer by how we're treating him, by how we're speaking to him, how we're asking him. And I think a lot of that comes down to respect for the man and appreciation and acknowledging what he's offering. So can you speak to that and the importance of that from a male perspective?
Oh, I mean, those are the foundation. That's the foundation of what men need from women, right? That respect is crucial, right? Respect is so crucial, and support and appreciation. Like, you hear a lot of ladies say stuff like, "Well, I'm not going to tell him I appreciate him for things that he's supposed to do," right? You hear he's supposed to do that, and I'm like, well, everybody likes to be told thank you. Everybody likes to be told I appreciate you. Everybody likes to be acknowledged for the little things that they do for you. So is it because he's supposed to do it, or is it because you want to support him, right? Or you want to make him feel good about himself, right? And so, I mean, you'll be amazed at how you can get better behavior from a guy by just appreciating and acknowledging him. I mean, if you want to get repeated behavior of something good, say, "Oh, I really appreciate it when you do this." But one way to not get the repeated behavior is to not ever acknowledge anything good, but always point out something bad. Now, I hear a lot of men who've been married for a while. That's one of the things they complain about the most, is this idea that I can't ever get anything right. Right? I can't ever get anything right. You hear that from men all the time. And it's not because they can't get anything right. It's because the women in their lives don't acknowledge the things that they do right, but they do acknowledge the things that they might not get right all the time. You see? And so, I mean, yes, appreciation, respect, acknowledgement, they're simple too. Think about how simple that is. I mean, it's basic manners. It's, it's please, it's thank you, it's I appreciate you. That's easy to do for a man, but it means a lot.
Yeah, in fact, I've heard men say that it's almost impossible to overemphasize how important respect is. So when we say respect, I just want to touch on that a little bit more. What does respecting a man mean, or what does it look like? And besides the appreciation piece, what does it really mean from the male perspective if you feel respected by the lady or the woman in your life?
Yeah, so I think a few things. Number one is always look at how does a woman treat her man in public, right? So even if you have issues with him, a big part of respect is not letting those issues outside of the home. Right. So one of the worst things you can do for a man is to emasculate him in front of another woman, right, or another man. Right. That is absolute disrespect in his mind. So telling other people about what he does wrong or how he's not adequate in whatever area, that is total disrespect. The other part of respect is trusting him to do what he says he's going to do. Right. If every time you ask him to make a decision, you come back and you check on it, or you come back and you say, why didn't you do it yet? Or whatever it is, you're not respecting him. You're not respecting him as an adult or as a man who said he was going to do it. Now, just because he doesn't do it the way that you want him to do it doesn't mean that it won't get done, right? So a big part of that respect is just trusting him, right? Trusting him to do what he says he's going to do. Now, if he's consistently not doing what he says he's going to do, now you need to have another conversation. But you can't start off that way. And a lot of women are so used to doing everything themselves, they don't understand how disrespectful it feels, for a guy when he steps in and steps up, and then she still kind of treats him like a kid. You see what I mean? So that's a big part of respect, for me. Don't go behind his back and don't emasculate him in public with other people, in front of other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this concept. And I think in dating, it can even happen where a woman allows that space and that time for the man to kind of do his job, meaning him to pursue her or him to ask her out or him to plan or organize something and trusting him to do that and then appreciating him for it rather than feeling like she needs to step in and do his job.
Yes.
Not trusting in his, not just his ability, but not trusting in his, that he will do it, even if it doesn't look like or doesn't happen in the exact same way that you might have envisioned it or that you might, right?
You know, a good example of that is, you know, if you're on a date, right? One thing, if you're on a date and you want him to open your door, right? Walk to the door and stop. Right, but what do most women do nowadays? Right, they'll walk and they're opening themselves, and he's sitting there like, you know, give me a chance to do something. Right, if you want certain things, you know, you don't have to say it. It's understood a lot of times, right? And so, like for instance, my wife, if we walk up to a door, she will not touch the door handle. She'll just stand there, and even if I'm absent-minded at that point in time, I know exactly what I need to do if we're going to proceed. Right, and it's not her. She doesn't have to say, "Open my door." She just stands there and steps into her feminine energy, right? That feminine energy says, "Hey, I want him to take control of this," and it works. It works wonders.
Yeah, in fact, I have another little example of that. You know, during the winter, my husband and I, maybe we'd go out to eat and I'd take off my coat while we're in the restaurant. And then maybe when we stand up, maybe he's checking his phone or he's getting the keys or whatever. And instead of me thinking, well, he's not helping me on with my coat, which is something I'd like, appreciate, I just give him a little nudge and hand him my coat. I don't even say anything. I just hand it to him. He knows what that means.
Yes.
He helps me on with my coat and I say, oh, thank you, honey. Give him a little kiss. And we both win, right?
That's it. Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. And so part of this magic power that I was talking about bringing out the best in men is a woman, I think, I kind of use a sports analogy. It's kind of like you're going to be the guard.
Yes.
Throw the ball to the forward and you're going to let him make the shot.
Yes.
He's going to get the credit for the basket, so to speak. But you're really the one that's kind of set him up to win.
Yes.
And then you both win. The team got the points, but he's the one that kind of gets the credit for it. And so you've kind of set him up to feel like he's won. He wins with you, and really you both win.
Everybody wins. And once you get over your egos, that's easy to do, right? That's very easy to do once your ego is out the way. And I think that's the problem with a lot of relationships, right? Is egos tear them apart, right? Because you hear a lot of women say stuff like, "Well, I shouldn't have to tell him to do this," or why should I have to do this? I shouldn't have to play small for him. I should have to play this game. Or what? It's not a game. It's human behavior. That's all it is. And once you get your ego out the way, it's easy. It's very easy.
Yeah, I like that you're bringing that up, and this idea of creating this win-win scenario is really appealing to me. My husband and I have talked about how, the scenario where maybe a husband forgets an anniversary, heaven forbid, right? Kind of a stereotypical example of a man, he's fallen down on his job, so to speak. So my husband and I, we had conversation about this shortly after we got married. We've been married now almost 11 years. And I said to him, you know what, that would never happen. It would never happen with us because we're going to be having conversations weeks before our anniversary about what we're going to do and what we'd like to plan and how we're going to celebrate and what we would both enjoy. And so we create this win-win scenario. So instead of me like lying in wait to see if he remembers, if he plans, if he happens to give me the right gift, we already know that's not going to happen. We're going to have created that win-win scenario as part of our partnership.
There you go. I mean, why would you want to set your mate up to fail, right? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Why do you want to set him up to fail? And, you know, I hear this for so many people who are dating and who are in relationships is they assume that the other person knows what it is that they want or need. Right. And I ask the question all the time when they say, well, he didn't do this or he didn't do that. I said, well, did you communicate to him that that's what you enjoyed or that's what you liked? Did you communicate that that's what you desired? Did you communicate any of these things? Well, no, he should just know. Well, what good does that do anybody? Right? Because men are not mind readers. I will tell you this. Men are not nearly as intuitive as women. Mm-hmm. Right? We're directive. Right? You give us a directive, oh, we're all over it. If you're asking us to be intuitive like a lot of women are, we're just not that. We're not built that way. Now, some are. I'm not gonna, like I said, I don't want to put anybody in a bucket. But overall, if I talk to a group of 10 men and I talk to a group of 10 women, I guarantee you what I'm telling you, at least 9 out of 10 of them they would agree. Mm-hmm. They would agree. So, I mean, instead of us fighting it and trying to change each other, then let's just embrace who each other are.
Yeah. Yeah. And create this win-win scenario. Mm-hmm. Set it up so that both people get what they want and need. Another guest said, men are really bad guessers.
Yes, absolutely. And it's frustrating. Right? It's like, why do you want me to guess? Just tell me what it is. I want to please you.
Right.
Most men want to please their women. I promise you. I mean, I feel like we get a bad rap sometimes. Like we people act as if we're like out to do, not do right by our women. That's not it. Sometimes we really just don't know what it is that you need. Mm-hmm. And we're, just tell us. Just tell us.
Yeah. So for women, since we're speaking to women, a part of this that can be helpful is for a woman to be in touch with mm-hmm. what her deepest wants and needs are, or even some of the more less deep needs, mm-hmm. what she needs in the moment.
Yeah.
And then having the confidence mm-hmm. and the courage to ask for or speak what she wants in a way that a man can hear it. So that mm-hmm. leads me to my next question for you, Troy.
Yes.
How can a woman, part of the reason, and let me back up, part of the reason that women struggle with this is they're afraid of A, seeming needy, B, mm-hmm. seeming demanding, or C, not getting their requests honored or met. So mm-hmm. how can a woman ask or phrase these requests or desires or wants or needs in a way that a man can hear them, first of mm-hmm. all, and he can respond, or at least is more likely to respond in a positive way?
Yes. Great question. Great question, because we got to get this right. Right? And so, what I hear so often is, a lot of women that are, especially professional women, right? The way they have to communicate at work is not the same way you need to communicate with your man at home, right? Men aren't looking for their boss, right? They're looking for a partner. Right. They're not looking for an employer. They're looking for a partner. They're looking for a companion. They're not looking for, a manager. You see what I mean? And so you can't talk at men like that. So a lot of times what I see on a dating scene, especially from older professional women, is they'll just tell a guy, you need to do this, this, and this, right? Or they're planning it out for them or trying to direct them. A better way to do it is to say something simple like, I really love when you bring me flowers, right? It makes me feel really special. Mm-hmm. Now in his mind, he's like, I need to bring more flowers, right? Or
note yourself.
There you go. We're simple, or something like this. When you do this, it makes me feel this way, right? Mm-hmm. That's a way better way of saying something than just saying you need to do this, right? So it's very simple. It's just all about how you say it. Because the minute that it becomes directive, the men get defensive, and once we're defensive, we want to fight. And once you want to fight, nothing's going to get accomplished at all, right? So it's really about how you phrase it. Or when he does something that you really like, reinforce it, right? Reinforce it. Okay, today he washed the dishes, right? That you've been wanting him to wash. Hey, babe, I really appreciate it that you washed the dishes. It took so much off of me. It was really great. I really appreciate you. That simple thing will make him want to wash the dishes more, mm-hmm. right? Or you could get mad and say, you don't ever wash the dishes. I don't know why you're not worth anything. You don't do anything around here. You see the difference?
Yeah.
So it's all about, and here's the thing, feminine energy wins over masculine energy any day when it comes to a man. We are suckers for feminine energy. I hate the fact that there's so many women are being coached today to step into their masculine energy in their relationships. When they, if you have a man that's worth it, that's an alpha male, right? Then step into your feminine energy and you will get more than you ever dreamed of from a man. But it's that masculine thing that causes this, right? And so, I know some people are going to say, well, who's masculine, who's female? I get that. In general, though, that feminine energy is is probably the most powerful thing women have, is that when it comes to men, is that feminine energy you give off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So does that help answer your question a little bit?
It does. And I think, and again, you can back me up on this from the male perspective, but I think that men enjoy that feeling of experiencing their masculine energy. And I think that's part of what generates more romantic feelings toward a woman rather than being more of a friendship or putting a woman into the friend zone or being more of a business or competitive type of relationship.
Yes, I would totally agree with that. I mean, even often when you see things like affairs, right? Or someone has infidelity. Most times when you look at the woman that they're dealing with on the side, she usually has feminine energy. And I get it. A lot of it's because she didn't have the same responsibilities to him. And I get all that. But usually it's just she made him feel like a man again.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And I'm not saying that's right? I'm just telling you that's what I see a lot of times. That's usually the difference. She's still in her feminine energy, and he made him feel like good again about himself, right? She compliments him, and she tells him that he's strong, and she comes and sits on his lap and rubs his head. You see what I mean? It's those are the things that are like so powerful, right? I don't care how great of a PowerPoint presentation you can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that feminine energy is the key.
I think you said something there that is really worth emphasizing too, Troy. I think one of the big things that attracts a man to a woman is how he feels around her. You talked about how oftentimes a man that might get involved with another woman and have an affair, it's because he feels good around this woman, and maybe the woman that he's married to, and again, we're not excusing affairs here, but maybe the woman he's married to or is in partnership with has stopped reinforcing him in that way. That doesn't justify an affair, but it's a very real thing that we're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just as if it's the same thing goes for women, right? When a man is in his masculine energy, women love that because it makes them feel secure, right? And so a lot of times, if it becomes like they are in a bickering relationship where it's like like two cats and dogs going at each other all the time, neither one of them can step into their good energy, into their normal energy. And so what happens is it tears a relationship apart, right? And that's another reason why a lot of men sometimes get friend zoned, right? Is because they're not in that masculine, confident energy, right? And they're playing the victim a lot. And so a lot of women aren't attracted to that because it's not strong. It doesn't make them feel secure, right? And the same thing. So the reason I'm bringing this up is, I think a lot of times women can point out, what they don't want in a man, right? And what turns them off in a man. But it's really hard to look at yourself and say, am I turning off men by what I'm putting out? That's the hard part to do, right?
Well, yeah, not only is it hard, but I think it's easy. I mean, I spent over 20 years in corporate America, and I worked in some fairly high-level positions where I was competing with men, and the focus was very outcome-oriented. And without me realizing it, some of that energy seeped over into my love life and my personal life, and I had this I got it vibe, I got handled vibe. And that didn't always serve me the best in my romantic life. And so, but I didn't even see that had happened at the time. It kind of, so yeah, not only is it hard to look at ourselves, but sometimes these things are kind of flying under the radar and we don't even realize that it's presenting in our interactions.
Right. You said a word there, because most of us don't take criticism well, right? And so sometimes it's not until someone sees it from the outside looking in. A lot of times what I see from a lot of women is they will just talk to their friends about it. And if their friends is in the same space that they're in, then guess no one's going to point it out.
Yeah.
Right? No one's going to say, well, you know what? This is why you're putting him off. They'll just say, well, he needs to man up, or he needs to get it together. Right.
Right.
So you got to have someone that's subjective or objective that can actually see what you're doing and say, you know what, this might be the reason why.
Yeah. So can I shift gears for just a little bit and ask you about a couple of dating scenario things that occur between men and women and get your thoughts and advice on them, what you would advise?
Oh, yeah. I love talking about dating.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I know that many of the women in this audience are a little bit more mature, have had a little bit more experience in life and in love, maybe have, lost in love or had their heart broken a few times. Mm-hmm. And many of them are dating maybe after a divorce or after even a death of a spouse or a long-term relationship. So things may have changed a lot since they were dating years ago. Mm-hmm. And some of the common things that come up, these are just everyday little things, but a lot of women are confused about how to navigate them. Okay. So the first one I wanted to ask you about is, if we're wanting to kind of dance in the feminine and allow a man to be in the masculine, what if a man says, where would you like to go, or what would you like to do for our date? Like, he kind of throws that out to the woman. And the woman's feeling awkward because A, she doesn't want to take the lead, and B, she's not quite sure, how expensive of a restaurant to suggest, or, there's just some awkwardness around that. And it kind of reminds me of the old, Jungle Book, where the vultures are all standing around and saying, I don't know, what do you want to do? I don't know, what do you want to do? It feels like that, right? So what do you recommend in that situation? Yeah,
absolutely. So if you peel that onion back, right, a lot of times why a man is asking that question is because he doesn't want to get it wrong, right? It's not that he's lazy or that he won't plan it. He doesn't want to get it wrong, right? And so nowadays, a lot of guys will, instead of risking get it wrong, they'll just say, hey, well, what do you want to do? Here's my suggestion, right? If a guy asks you that question, you can say something simple like, I'll tell you a little bit of the things that I enjoy, right? I enjoy Italian food. I really love walks, I really love nature. I really love, competitive things, right? You give him the ideas of the things that you enjoy doing and then say, hey, so why don't you just do something? Why don't you just plan something around that? I guarantee you he'll be like, I got it. I can do that, right? But you just gave him a little bit of a bone, right? For him to be able to, it's like a map, like give him a little map. Because what he don't want to do is plan something in nature and you hate the outdoors, right? Or you don't want to plan an Italian restaurant and then you get there. I remember, I will never forget this. I took my wife before we were married. I took her, we were driving downtown and I had this night planned at this Thai restaurant, right? And we were driving past the restaurant because we had to go past it to park. And she looked at the sign and she said, ugh, Thai food. Ooh, I don't want that stuff. But my whole date was planned around the Thai food, right? And so for me, I was devastated. I was like, oh, I got it wrong, right? So think about it. It's a series of things like that happens that leads a man to say, what do you want to do? So just meet him halfway. Is that fair?
Yeah, like it. I like it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then another common one, maybe it's a first or second date, and maybe it's lunch or dinner, but maybe it's even just coffee. Mm-hmm. And a lot of women are saying, well, should I get out my wallet? Should I get out my purse? Should I offer to pay half? What do you recommend around that? Because that feels awkward to a lot of women. And I think part of it is, and you can weave this into your answer, part of it is maybe they don't want to feel obligated, or if it's a nice dinner, they don't want to feel like he's expecting something from her. But also part of it is, they're strong, successful, maybe financially secure women. So what do you recommend around that?
So if we're talking, third or fourth date, something like that, then I think I'm all about reciprocation, right? I think in today's day and age, reciprocation is key. So there's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, you've taken me out about 2 or 3 times. I would really like to get this one for us. That gives him permission to get the weight off his back, and he has a choice to make. He can say, I still got it, or he can let you pay. Now, if he allows you to pay, you can't look at him and say, why he allowed me to pay, right? Don't offer unless you really want to pay. You see what I mean? And so I think that's really what it comes down to. It's all about the presentation of it, right? Don't say I got this, but you say, you know what? You've taken me out a few times, and I've enjoyed our time together. Let me take care of this one because I enjoy your time as well, right? That's a simple way to do it, and let him go from there. I mean, I think that's an easy fix.
What about though on like a first or a second date, or it's an initial meeting?
Yeah, I think on that first or second day, the initial meeting, I think she should offer to pay. Most men will say, you know what, I have it, right? Mm-hmm. So if I think you still offer to pay. Only reason I'm saying that is because y'all don't know each other yet, right? Mm-hmm. So essentially, there's no investment there with each other, right? So just offer and say, you know what, I can take care of mine if you need me to. And if he says, yeah, you go ahead and take care of yours, and he takes care of his, then that's okay. If he says, you know what, I'll take care of both, then you say, okay, right? Just don't argue about it. I think it's simple. I think it's a way bigger, we make it a way bigger deal than what it really is. And we look into it too much.
Yeah.
All right. We look into it way too much. So just offer, pull out your wallet and say, you know what, I can take care of mine if I need to, but just say it in a sweet way, in a feminine way. So what do you think?
I have some mixed feelings around this. I feel like for a initial meeting, if it's something as simple as like a coffee date or something like that, mm-hmm. I mean, you're not talking about a lot of money. Mm-hmm. I just feel like sometimes, a woman could reach out and touch a man's arm and just say, it's really nice meeting you. Thank you so much for inviting me to coffee, assuming mm-hmm. he did the inviting.
Yeah.
I feel like on that first initial meeting, if he invited her out and it's not, like an extravagant dinner or something, yeah. I kind of am in the vibe that I think I would relax into that and let a man pay. That's just me. Maybe yeah. I'm from the old-fashioned school.
Yeah, right? I get you. And it makes sense.
However, I do agree with you that once you're in more of a flow of dating, the reciprocal thing becomes a real reality because, men have financial realities as well. They have bills yes. to pay. And I think there are really lovely, graceful ways that a woman can reciprocate. For example, after you've been dating long enough and you feel comfortable, you could invite him over for a really nice dinner that you cooked yourself, or you could pack a wonderful picnic. The two of you could talk about it and you could pack a really lovely picnic. It doesn't always have to be like quid pro quo, picking up mm-hmm. the check, but it is like this flow, this give and take and this mm-hmm. reciprocation. And so I guess part of what I feel is explore how you can do that and still enjoy letting him win and be the hero, and then also still dance with your femininity, right?
Yes.
I just like that idea. And I definitely wouldn't recommend on a first date that a woman says, I got it, and pay the whole check.
Yeah.
That feels like,
I agree,
kind of emasculating.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that for sure. Because it comes off as what's the word I'm looking for? As I'm gonna overtake everything. It sets a tone for the relationship, right? Now, if she knows she doesn't ever want to see him again, then I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
But if she wants to see him again, then I agree with you.
Yeah, that's a good point. If she never wants to see him again, then paying that check or doing that completely releases her from that feeling of any sort of obligation. Okay, yes. So here's another tricky one I'd like to ask you about. So mm-hmm. what if a guy, let's do two scenarios here that are kind of related. First one is, what if a woman is interacting with a guy online, but he never actually gets around to asking her out? That's the first one. Mm-hmm. And then the second one would be, what if he does ask her out and they have a good time and he says he'll call, but he doesn't call back?
Very tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very tricky. Now, online is tricky. If you're talking to a guy for an extended period of time and he doesn't ask you out, if you're interested in him, my suggestion is to say, not to ask him out, but to say, hey, you know what? I think we would have a great, even better conversation in person. Suggest it, right? But not saying, hey, let me take you out on a date.
Right.
But if he can't pick up on that hint, he's not the guy for you. You don't want a guy that's that passive in your life, because he will be passive for the rest of the relationship, right?
Right.
So that's my
computer or the phone, right?
Yeah, you just say, you know what? I love your energy online. I would love to see you in person at some point. Mm-hmm. Put that out there, and if he doesn't go with that and run with the ball, you don't need him.
Yeah, then you say next. I completely concur with you on that one. Okay.
Yep. Now, so you went out, you had a good time, and you're saying he didn't call back. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So you went out, you felt like there was a connection, some chemistry, and both of you had a really nice time, or at least you thought. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'll give you a call, and I'd love to see you again. And he's gone. He disappears. He just gets ghost. Yeah. You know what I would say in that instance, and I know that people aren't going to like it, but he's not the guy for you. Yeah. Right? Because if he gets ghost, men are hunters, right? Let me tell you something. If a man wants you, you will know he wants you. Mm-hmm. If you have to guess too hard about if a guy wants you, then you know the answer already, right? I always say this: when it's right, it's easy. Amen, amen, my friend. It's easy when it's right. No man I know that really likes a woman goes ghost on her. I'm sorry, I've never seen it. But if he doesn't really like her, then he'll go ghost on her. Now, those are also the kind of guys that reach back out to you after a few weeks, after they're bored, and they're bored at home and they want something to do, right? And I don't think you should ever allow that as well. You have to address that head on too. If he calls back a few weeks later, say, hey, I thought we had a good time. I thought we were gonna go out again, but I just never heard from you. I'm just not used to being in situations like that. I really need to hear consistently from someone if we're gonna be dating. And if you can't do that, then we might not be good for each other. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? So just be strong and honest about what it is you want. Yeah, and I really, really love that you're saying that, because I've told so many women over the years, I've said, look, even a really shy man can figure out how to connect the dots to pick up the phone, ask you out again, or to see you again. He can figure this out, even a really shy man. Yes. Now, that doesn't mean you're not receptive and you're not warm and you're not encouraging, but they don't need us to help them to figure out what to do next, right? We don't have to step in and do their job. And I love what you said, that if you're wondering too much about whether a man is that into you or is into seeing you, you already have that answer. And as much as we might not like to hear it, the truth really does set us free, right? It does. I mean, that way you get out of your own head, right? If you take stuff for what it is, you get out of your own head. And if the actions don't align, because a lot of times what I see with women is they will create their own fantasies in their mind. They'll start making all these excuses for the guy. Like, hey, maybe he has to work too much, or maybe it's just that his phone died, or whatever it is, right? You don't have to do all that. If you have to do all that, it's not the right relationship for you. Yeah, and I really like what you're sharing here too, Troy, because this is grounded in a woman having respect for herself. Yes. Already talked about the importance of having respect for the man that you choose to be with, or that you want to be with, but having a clear sense of who you are and knowing that you have value, and being willing to pass by those guys that are not stepping up is self-honoring to you. And one of the things I love to say to women is make all of your decisions about love, dating, and relationships from a place that is self-honoring. Because if you compromise your own values or you compromise yourself, you're not going to end up being happy. You're not going to end up being in a happy relationship. And chances are you'll be not appreciated or possibly even disrespected by men. Look, I mean, you said it all. I mean, everything comes from a place of self-worth and value, right? The decisions, it's so funny you say that. When I coach a lot of women, right, the women that I see who go from the way they behave when they had no self-love to the way they behave when they do is so night and day. Mm-hmm. The things they allow into their life, the people they allow into their lives,
the things they accept, the willingness to let stuff go quicker, it just changes completely because they are coming from a place of empowerment and not a place of victimhood. You know, they're not a victim anymore. And it is a beautiful thing to watch, a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, I agree. It is a beautiful thing to watch. And it's also grounded in truth and not that fantasy that you were talking about. They're not creating some scenario or some fantasy where a woman might be saying, well, if only he would do this, or this, or if only this relationship were this, and this, but it's not. They're creating all kinds of reasons or excuses in their mind and fantasizing that it's different than it is. And so they might stay stuck there because the man is giving them just enough crumbs or just often enough to kind of keep them holding on, right?
Yep. That's exactly what happens. Men only do what you allow them to do. I mean, I know it sounds simple, but it is simple. What you do, what you allow is what will continue. That's just it. So the minute, it's almost like, I use the example a lot of times when a man and a woman break up, right? A lot of times, you know how they hold on to each other a little while, and the guy still comes around whenever he feels like it, you know, that kind of deal. And she's still fantasizing about it, so she still lets him. The minute she cuts it off is the minute it becomes real to him, right? The minute when she's allowing him to come back whenever he wants to, he'll take that. We'll take that all day long.
Yeah.
But the minute she doesn't answer the phone, the minute she says, no, you can't come over, the minute she says, no, I don't want to speak to you, the minute she blocks him on all her social media and all this stuff, that's when it becomes real. Because we don't take well to just words. We're action people, right? You can talk, you can tell me all this. It's almost like, you know, you can fuss at me all day long, but until you do something different, then I'll let the storm go by, and then I'll keep doing what I was doing. Right? That's how men operate. We operate based off consequences. And if there's no consequence, then I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you're sharing that. And this doesn't take the responsibility away from men.
Exactly.
But it's also about empowering women and reminding the women that are listening, since we're speaking to women, that you are the one that gets to decide.
Yes.
For what is right, acceptable, and what is going to support you in your life and in your love life, right?
Yeah, you're so right. I hear a lot of women, they'll say, like, say I give some kind of relationship tip to women, which I give to both, right? But a lot of times the first thing a woman will say was, why don't you tell the man to do this, this, and this? And I said, well, who can you change? And it's not him. It's only you. So an empowered person says, I won't allow it, right? An unempowered person says, well, he shouldn't do that to me. You see the difference?
Yes.
Right? And that's where I try to get people to go is, you know, stop worrying about what they do, but what will you allow to happen to yourself? And that's when you're coming from a good energy.
Yeah. So Troy, before we wrap up, I just would love for you to leave us with just maybe one last parting thought or last piece of wisdom, whatever you'd like to share.
I love this part because, you know, one of the things I love to say at the end of the day, start with you, right? Just start with you. And I think that will take you a long way in dating and in relationships, because if you can't get right within yourself, if you aren't seeking to understand more, if you aren't doing the work, if you aren't putting forth the effort, then none of the other dating stuff matters, right? Start with you and everything else will fall in place.
Thank you. That's a great thought for us to end on. And I really want to thank you for generously sharing and for being here and contributing to the lives of so many people out there.
Yes. Thank you for having me, because I love talking about this stuff, which you can tell. I love it.
Yes, I can definitely feel of your passion about it, and I appreciate that. So also, ladies, I want to thank you for being here with us. We hope to see you for more. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.